Lillian Hellwoman is a radical feminist yoga teacher. She's an independent searcher.
My talk is called From Human Bodies to Digital Identities, and it's about transgenderism, transhumanism, and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. But first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on. I feel truly honored for the opportunity to be on this panel. In my talk, I want to show how transgenderism and transhumanism are connected, in that they are both normalizing and institutionalizing body dissociation, and what both have to do with the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution. I'm going to start with a brief explanation of the concept of Fourth Industrial Revolution and then show how transhumanism fits into it, because this is the context of then understanding transgenderism and the underlying assumptions perpetrated or perpetuated by gender identity ideology, specifically how this ideology prepares the ground for transhumanism. So when I first encountered transgenderism in 2012, I was a baby radfem, and it didn't make sense to me how anyone could take it seriously. It seemed like a mass delusion to me, but why was it so powerful? Through my research into the money behind transgenderism, thanks to Jennifer Bielek, who does a lot of work on that, as well as the technological and scientific developments that are being hailed as the Fourth Industrial Revolution, I was able to see the bigger picture, and it suddenly made sense why the so-called social justice movement is being backed by corporations, governments, NGOs, as well as academia. So this is why I want to focus on the underlying assumptions and basic suppositions about the body, the mind, and consciousness in both transgenderism and transhumanism, and what makes these concepts so seamlessly connect with each other, for the benefits of understanding what they keep coming up with and maybe being able to talk better with well-meaning women who've drank the Kool-Aid. If we can explain to them what this world will lead to, this ideology will lead to, taken to its logical endpoints, because nobody wants to live in this world. None of us do. So the Fourth Industrial Revolution is built on the first three industrial revolutions, the invention of the steam engine, then leading to mechanization, urbanization, then electricity, mass production, and then the third, the emergence of computers and digital technology. This newest industrial revolution is again driven by increasing availability and interaction of technologies, such as artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, nanotechnology, biotechnology, biosecurity, all of that. This will likely lead not only to the work of professions as different as lawyers, librarians, journalists, doctors becoming partly or completely automated, but also through the possibilities of neurotechnologies and biotechnologies to a redefinition of what it means to be human. At least this is what ardent proponents of this development are saying. According to them, soon cows will be engineered to produce in their milk a blood clotting element which hemophiliacs lack, and they are already engineering the genomes of pigs with the goal of growing organs suitable for human transplantation. So the keywords here are connectivity and smart systems, meaning everything will be connected to the internet via the Internet of Things and the Internet of Bodies, and will have a digital identity or even a digital twin. What are these? So the Internet of Things describes the idea that everyday items are connected to the internet and identifiable by other devices, like medical wearables, cars, tracking devices, inserted into parcels, even farmers putting sensors into fields to monitor soil. Basically, they want to put sensors and software in everything and eventually present the internet as ubiquitous virtual reality. The Internet of Bodies is an extension of the Internet of Things and basically connects the human body to the internet. There are three generations of the Internet of Bodies: external, wearable devices; internal, like pacemakers and digital pills; and embedded, where technology and the human body are melded together. A digital identity is the entire collection of information generated by a person's online activity. It's your online identity, basically. And in the context of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, people will need to have an online identity because in order to interact with institutions of all kinds. Digital twins are virtual models of a physical thing or body. It's like a digital clone. This brings me to transhumanism. The transhumanist vision is basically one of synthetic biology. man controlling his evolution through artificial biology. For example, active implantable microchips, smart tattoos, and custom designing organisms by writing artificial DNA. They're actually doing that. They're researching it. Other examples are digital copies of mental functions, uploading, downloading consciousness, so that transhumans then are hybrid humans merged with computational technology, or even people who consist entirely of software, or people who are software who can then merge with a synthetically grown human body. Through all of these technological means, women will be made entirely obsolete in terms of reproduction, and gestation becomes a commodity. The underlying assumptions here are that the whole edifice is built upon the assumption that consciousness resides entirely in the brain. This is a view shared by many neuroscientists, leading thinkers, present and past. It's the same premise that is expressed in the Descartesian adage, I think, therefore I am. In this view, the brain is the self. The brain is a pattern of neurological firings. These can be replicated in software. There you go, you have self in software. The body in this view is just a substrate and can be replaced with technological soft or hardware. So in the transhumanist vision, there is a union of man and machine, and the resulting blend of biology and technology will be able to do everything the brain can, just better. So these ideas are, of course, very dangerous because they completely neglect the body's reality. Like, you wouldn't equate a disembodied brain with a person, so it doesn't make sense to suggest that a machine could be human. Machines are not embodied, and embodiment is the foundation of who and what we are. So erasing the reality of the body, you get lost. Your feelings get explained away neurologically, they get fixed pharmacologically, or both. The novelist Milan Kundera once said, "I think, therefore I am," is the statement of an intellectual who underrates toothaches. I would add, "I think, therefore I am," is the statement of a male intellectual who has never experienced menstrual cramps, let alone childbirth. In conclusion, the transhumanist project that is made possible by the Fourth Industrial Revolution, what we see here on full display are the profoundly necrophilic tendencies of technocracy. In Mary Daly's words, a mechanization of life, a robotizing regression, the patriarchal pathology. So I would like to end this first part of my talk with an excerpt from a blog post by Winter Oak called "Resist the Fourth Industrial Repression." You can find the blog at winteroak.org.uk. I can share my resources if that's something you want. So it says, the Fourth Industrial Repression wants to own, control, and profit from everything that exists in this world. The Internet of Things aims to create a matrix of total connectivity of which it is the owner. You, your home, your family, your friends, your relationships, and your activities will all belong to the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Its technocrats regard you as nothing more than another piece of disposable fleshware, one unit among millions, just another figure on its global balance sheet of exploitation. The Fourth Industrial Repression will track you and always know where you are, who you are with, and what you are doing. It demands your total obedience. The Fourth Industrial Repression wants to replace everything true and authentic with its replicas, with a reality not so much virtual as entirely fake. When the Fourth Industrial Repression demands biosecurity, it means the security of its own systems of control against the threat from biological reality, from nature, from life, from us. The Fourth Industrial Repression employs huge armies of professional liars and gullible fools to spread its propaganda and scream abuse at all who dare challenge its fear-mongering falsehoods. The Fourth Industrial Repression is a death cult, which dreams of wiping out everything that is natural, everything that is wild, everything that is free. So now I'm coming to transgenderism. Transgenderism is the Trojan horse that bridges us from now to transhumanism. The explanations for transgenderism, as you know, are usually confusing, intentionally, I would say. They conflate and confuse biological sex and gender. It all starts to make much more sense when one tries to understand the assumptions that undergird such language, as well as the goal, which is to dissociate us from our bodies in preparation for the transhumanist project. Martine Rothblatt, who's a transgenderist and transhumanist and very rich and very influential, wrote a book called From Transgender to Transhuman. And he makes many obfuscating statements like this. For example, a person's nature has nothing to do with gonads. Natures are transgendered. Sex is ultimately in the mind, and our minds are infinitely unique in sexual identity. The only possible new paradigm of sexual identity is that people are neither male or female, but of individual gender across an infinitely wide continuum. Notice here the use of the term sexual identity. It is eerily reminiscent of the now ubiquitous term gender identity. But what does it mean? What he means by that are the same old sexist concepts of complementary natures, often referred to by the code words feminine and masculine, but really meaning subordinate or submissive and dominant or aggressive. Ignoring decades of radical feminist critique of the traditional patriarchal view that women are naturally submissive, passive, and nurturing, and thus complementary, in the words of Sheila Jeffreys, to men's natural dominance, activeness, and aggressiveness, he posits that the new feminism he espouses has uncovered the actual truth, which is the same old lie, namely that people have inherently gendered mental natures and that these are irrespective of physical anatomy. In other words, the body is irrelevant. What really matters is the mind, the brain. The mind is where a person's consciousness, self, soul, nature is located. He often says it in his book, mind is deeper than matter. So what's happening here is an attempt at reframing. Instead of denoting the physiological differences between men and women that outwardly manifest as primary and secondary sex characteristics, sex in this reframe is now supposed to be equivalent with sexual identity, gender identity. And since sexual identity is in the mind, and the mind is all that matters, our natures are suddenly reinterpreted in the same old patriarchal sex stereotype ways. In other words, get rid of the sex bodies, but keep the sex stereotyped identity. Why? Because this concept of our mental identity being who we truly are, instead of our sentient sexed bodies, is the bridge to the virtual transhumanist reality he and others like him want us to consent to. He hopes that he can convince us that consenting to have our sex bodies erased in exchange for a digital, sex stereotyped identity is freedom, in his words, freedom of gender and freedom of form. I will let you judge for yourselves and quote him in his necrophilic snoolishness. To be transgendered, one has to accept that they have a unique sexual identity, which cannot be happily expressed as either rigidly male or female. It requires a unique transgendered expression. And to be transhuman, one has to be willing to accept that they have a unique personal identity beyond flesh or software, and this unique personal identity can only be expressed in a unique transhuman expression. So, in order to be really happy, we need to be transgender and transhuman, living in artificial reality in virtual space, dissociated from our sentient bodies as digital, rainbow gendered identity. This is a fantasy, a life-hating, soulless fantasy, which the sociopathic narcissists at the top of these movements and institutions want us to share. They want us to consent to it. They need us to consent to it. Let's not.
What I've been talking about, this is all very scary. I didn't get to it, but there is a concerted effort to push this through the UN and the EU via strategies and laws. But what I want to emphasize really is that it's so important for us to laugh about the stupidity of their fantasies, to laugh at them and to laugh about this, because otherwise we could become again dissociated or frozen in a fear response. and be disconnected from our bodies. And laughing is so beneficial and healing, and it connects us to our bodies and to each other. So laugh.